Good afternoon. A nice gray afternoon here in Seattle. I'm not complaining. It's really nice. Um, I'm nice and cool because I installed my air conditioner into the window. Up here comes my acolyte. I suspect we're going to be busy. Oh, there he is. Hi there. How are you? Going to listen to the sermon? Yeah, you can fall asleep just like everybody else will. Anyway, this afternoon's gospel reading, actually it's for tomorrow morning, is actually kind of interesting, and I will read the gospel and then talk about it, and then tomorrow morning it's your turn. Um, I have to use the mouse, so you're going to have to leave my arm alone just a bit, okay? Yeah. Anyway, before this gets too long, because I'm dealing with him, let's get started. The Holy Gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ according to Matthew. Jesus went out of the house and sat by the sea. Such great crowds gathered around him that he got into the boat and sat there, while the whole crowd stood on the beach. And he told them many things in parables, saying, A sower went out to sow, and as she sowed, some of the seed fell on the path, and the birds came and ate them up. Other seeds fell on rocky ground, where they did not have much soil, and they sprang up quickly, since they had no depth of soil. But when the sun rose, they were scorched, and since they had no room, they withered away. Other seeds fell among the thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked them. Other seeds fell on good soil and brought forth grain, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. Let anyone with ears listen. Hear then the parable of the sower. When anyone hears the word of the kingdom and does not understand it, the evil one comes and snatches away what is sown in the heart. This is what is sown on the path. And for what is sown on rocky ground, this is the one who hears the word and immediately receives it with joy. Yet such a person has no root, but endures only for a while. And when trouble or persecution arises on account of the word, that person immediately falls away. As for what was sown among thorns, this is the one who hears the word, but the cares of the world and the lure of wealth choke the word, and it yields nothing. But as for what is sown in good soil, this is the one who hears the word and understands it, who indeed bears fruit and yields in one case 100-fold, in another 60, and another 30. The Gospel of the Lord. This parable comes from the time probably after the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem by the Romans in 70 AD, when Matthew writes his gospel basically as a catechism to the church in Antioch, which seems to have been having problems with its membership rolls. Persecutions had come along, and some people had drifted away from the Christian community. Some were just too busy with other things to keep active within the congregation. Some had better things to do, like hang around in the beer halls and bars and pool halls, and some were hanging in there. And the sermons that have been produced from this parable have been rather odd, to say the least, like the old Wesleyan sermons about backsliding and the like. We've all heard them, I've even preached them, but it sets up two problems. First, it sets up a perfection that no one can achieve, which leads to the second problem. It sets us up for a guilt trip. We're Anglicans, we don't do guilt, because basically Jesus didn't do guilt. He was pretty forthright about what he had to say, but laying a guilt trip on people wasn't his thing. So I did some research on this gospel, which was actually quite helpful. One source made the point that maybe the interpretation we are used to is not what Matthew, let alone Jesus, was even talking about. It's not about backsliding or guilt. It's about the vocation of the Christian, the vocation of the laity and the clergy, the vocation of the baptized. The Christian calling is to go out and preach the gospel to everyone, everybody, because that's who it's for. Cast the seed everywhere, no matter how fertile the soil is or isn't. Cast it on the rocks, for crying out loud, and see what happens. Waste it. Well, you really can't waste it because there's a never-ending supply of seed, but you get the point. And just what is the seed? The seed is very simple. It's the gospel itself. The gospel is the good news that the entity that is the source of all things became one of us in time and space on this dinky little planet out in the middle of absolutely nowhere, and lived and died as one of us and showed us that the powers of darkness and evil really have no power unless we allow them to. And that in the midst of all of that, we are not alone. That God dwells deep in the heart of each one of us, every human being, no matter their creed, their color, their race, their language. God is what makes everything tick, including us. And the energy deep within the atoms and molecules that make the universe tick is love and compassion and peace. This is the seed we're being called to throw around even at this present moment. Mind you, given our present moment, amidst such needed racial revolution and the plague running rampant, thanks to the fact that this nation has absolutely no leadership, doing this is not really easy to accomplish, since we're still pretty much cooped up in our homes and bored to tears. But there are a couple things that come to mind, at least for me, as we travel through this moment in history. First is, we ourselves need the seed. I know I need the seed. Because of the present situation, we personally need to know the good news. We need to be reminded on a constant basis. We need to re-up our knowledge that we are indeed not alone, that we are fully and completely loved, even though we might be by ourselves. The truth is that we have each other. And the spirit of the very entity that powers the universe is overflowing on us and with us and in us, just like the seed we're supposed to be sowing. We have that love. It's a given. That compassion that finds its origins in the Holy One is ours. We don't have to ask for it. There are no questions asked. It's given to all creation as a birthright because that is who God is. And this fact, if we allow it, is the source of our hope. The Xanax, if you will, that keeps us from entering the dark places that tempt us in our isolation and uncertainty. The second thing kind of piggybacks on the first. If we keep the first thing in mind, that we are not alone, that we are loved, then we can be that love and compassion, mercy and peace for those in our sphere of influence, for whom the darkness seems like the only option. It's interesting, I keep talking to people in the neighborhood. There is that feeling. The darkness is closing in. And in the conversations, I just keep reminding them, you're not alone. Things will be okay. It's still going to be hard, but we'll get through this together. We stay connected to folks as well as those who give us life. We share our stories and our concerns and our faith with them. We do simple things like swap recipes or tell jokes so we can keep laughter in our lives. We remind them, and we're reminding ourselves, that when the darkness seems insurmountable, that we're not there to fix anything, because we can't, but to stand with them in the darkness until they are again aware of the flickering of the light that dwells deep within us and them until the seeds sprout again. Remember that the seed is the very truth of all things. It has power to crack through the husk and send out roots and greens and burst forth from the earth. Remember that when life seems, and actually is, Good Friday, that the resurrection is not far behind, no matter what happens. Remember, love always wins, and that love is yours. That love is mine. It is ours. So spread it wastefully like the never-ending supply of seed. Smear it everywhere. Let it fall where it may, into the nooks and crannies, into the rocky ground, into the fertile soil. We never know where it might sprout and take root and grow into a mighty oak. And while you're at it, at least metaphorically, fill your bathtub with the seed and take a bath in it. It'll keep you safe and alive and filled with the hope that is ours in Jesus Christ our Lord. That's about it. Not much more to say. Think about it, ruminate, share what you think tomorrow morning at Mass. That'll be fun. I've been amazed at the profound things that come out of you guys. I am so overwhelmed and humbled by the things you have to say. The links went out earlier today. One of the links, Vertical Response messed up on, but you can still get there if you click on the Zoom Mass icon. And another email will go out tomorrow morning with all the same information, so you can get there. So I bid you a lovely afternoon and a peaceful evening and a good night's sleep. And we'll see you all tomorrow. Have a great day.